About a month ago, I asked two of my friends a simple question. If they could make me play one game for the first time, what would it be? They gave me a few different answers, but the one they agreed on was Halo. It's admittedly been quite a large blind spot for me. Okay, first, here's a super quick rundown of my gaming history. Here's my top 10 favorite games with some honorable mentions. A Game Boy Advance was my first console, then played on the Wii a lot as a kid. Eventually I moved to PS3 for a bit until I actually did play on 360 for a good few years. I started playing on 360 back around 2013, so Halo was a bit before my time. Since then I've been mostly a PS4, PS5, and PC gamer. Okay, without further ado, here's my experience playing every Halo campaign for the first time. Spoilers for the Halo campaigns, obviously. Alright, I have to start this with a disclaimer. I tried to play CE a year ago. I beat the first two missions and fizzled out on Truth and Reconciliation. And, in complete honesty, it's because CE felt old and didn't grab me. It felt like a slog to get through. I mean, to be fair to myself, this game is as old as me and kind of feels like it, and I really wish that there was a moment where it fully clicked for me, but I'm not sure there was. But, as I kept playing through the game on this second attempt, I started to understand it better. I won't lie, it took a bit of effort for the game to click with me at all. Hell, Baldur's Gate 3, maybe the best game I think I've ever played, took me until I beat the Goblin Camp the first time for it to really click with me. One part that I didn't have to work to love, though, was the soundtrack. Obviously, I had heard the most iconic parts before, but hearing them in gameplay, particularly in moments like the final mission, were awesome. The violin and orchestra inspire you to soldier on and give a grand sense of scale and wonder that I'm sure the game did a better job at in 2001. Still, moments like landing on the Halo for the first time and seeing the ring in the skybox are still breathtaking. Everything feels new and fresh with a unique feel that even though it's been 24 years and many Bungie games and environments later, I still found myself admiring the scenery of the Halo once in a while. That is, until you see the same hallway for the 15th time that level. That's really what made me not want to continue playing. The level design is painfully outdated, and so many missions are easy to get lost in because every room feels, and often is, the same as the previous one. I think this game would be much easier to recommend even now if about half the rooms were cut from the game entirely. And don't get me started on the worst offender for this, the fucking library mission. If you've played this mission, and I'm assuming you have if you're watching this video, I feel like we should be entitled to some form of compensation. I think this was a psyop by the CIA to torture people to harvest their energy. Okay, obviously I'm being a bit hyperbolic, but man, this mission is really boring and frustrating. One mission I do like is Truth and Reconciliation, which I would have liked more if you could actually stealth for more of the mission, but I get that that isn't really Master Chief's style. The sniper at the beginning of the mission feels incredible to use with a loud, satisfying shot and hit sound. Honestly, pretty much all the weapons feel solid to use, except maybe the assault rifle, but I might also just be bad. If Bungie has always done something right, it's gunplay. The shotgun felt especially strong, and I loved using it to mow down mobs of Flood. The one thing that kept me trudging along other than the gameplay was the story. I wanted to know what would happen next, especially after the Flood reveal. The story had an air of mystery that I really liked. I wanted to know who created the Halo ring and what they were made for. Cortana and Chief's dynamic is like a little strange in hindsight, but made perfect sense to me the first time through. I assumed Cortana and Chief were meant to have like a bit of a romantic relationship, or at least like some undertones of that, so their banter at the beginning read pretty normal to me. After having played Halo Reach, it's a bit strange though. As far as I can tell from what I'm given in Reach, Chief is frozen when Cortana is transported onto the Pillar of Autumn, so they shouldn't know each other. It's not Halo CE's fault, but something I noticed writing the script and looking at the franchise as a whole. Chief's character, or lack thereof, stood out to me in this game. I thought he was damn near mute, but he just kind of reads as a generic protagonist character in this game. Although his voice actor, Steve Downes, does a great job giving weight to admittedly simple dialogue.
No thanks to your driving. Yes. Slow down. You're losing me. The Flood is spreading. If we activate Halo's defenses, we can wipe them out.
Cortana immediately has a bit more personality and flair to me, which helps because she simply has a lot more to say than Chief from mission to mission. I think Halo CE, in context of being 24 years ago, still holds up pretty well, and I definitely understand why Halo became such a big thing from this start. I can't imagine what it must have felt like to play this in 2001, man. Crash landing on the Halo ring must have felt like seeing God. Fairly solid start once I got used to the slower pace and repetitive missions and hallways. I'm not sure I can say enough how much better Halo 2 is than CE. I genuinely think everything is bigger and better. The most obvious improvement, though, is right at the start of the game. the story. In another Star Wars-inspired intro, we see the Covenant's holy city and how the fallout of CE has impacted their politics. Gee, I wonder if the elite with Keith David's voice is going to be important. Anyway, it was really cool to see the political structure and society of the Covenant. It adds a nice bit of depth to the enemies that Halo CE was severely lacking. The opening cutscene sets the tone for the rest of the campaign perfectly by showing the reputation Chief has to the Covenant. It's almost like that scene in John Wick where the guy tells his son that he's fucked because the Baba Yaga's after him, which is a huge aura buff to Chief. Speaking of which, aura feels like Chief's main goal in this game, man. He speaks less than in CE, and when he does speak, it is almost always a one-liner. The man's only character trait is to mercilessly defend humanity and be badass as fuck doing it. He throws himself and a giant bomb out of an airlock, rides it through a space battle, parks it in a Covenant ship, and jumps off of it to land back on a human cruiser, and no one even bats an eye. They're almost sick of his shit at the beginning of the game. It's awesome and hilarious. Big fan of changing him from generic stand-in protagonist to guy who takes every opportunity to look cool. Genuinely a perfect start. The music is a big standout evolution from CE as well. The electric guitar addition to the main Halo theme works perfectly and matches with Chief's new identity of aura maxing. New pieces of music too, like the one in the insane scene I described earlier, hit hard with a new grander identity than CE had. Seeing New Mombasa was a great change of environment for the series, and it was really fun seeing a more urban environment with snipers hidden in the rooftops or balconies. It felt more like a COD campaign, but in a good way. It's more grounded, and I think that's both to the story and the gameplay's benefit. Jumping onto the back of the Scarab tank is an awesome moment. The Scorpion tank might be the heaviest feeling tank I've ever driven in a game. The explosions of the ghosts and banshees from the main cannon is so damn satisfying. They pop like a damn balloon. Then, the fourth mission begins. And wouldn't you know it, that elite with Keith David's voice is important. Spawning as the Arbiter for the first time was a surreal experience. I had obviously heard of Master Chief before, and I had heard the name Arbiter in relation to Halo, but honestly, I just thought it was another way to reference the elites. So when I found out that you play as an elite for half the game, I was kind of stoked. I was genuinely surprised, as I assume pretty much everyone was when it came out in 2004. Now, I do think that there's probably a pretty interesting discussion to be had about the differences between playing as an enemy in Halo versus, like, The Last of Us Part 2, but I'm not sure if I'm going to get into that much here. Maybe another video comparing the two down the line of something if I feel like there's enough meat on that bone. But for now, let's just say that I think intertwining the missions where you play as the good and bad guy works way better than the full story versions in The Last of Us. I also noticed a lot of connections with Bungie's future project Destiny, with some pretty strong similarities between the elites and the Fallen. If you've played Destiny 2, you know that one of the characters allied with humanity is now a faction of Fallen or Elixni called the House of Light. They're led by Mithrax, who's basically the Arbiter, but less edgy and badass. Sorry, Mithrax. The House of Light in Halo would be the elites, the faction that defects from the rest of the Covenant to join an allegiance with humanity. The Brutes feel like a solid parallel to the Cabal. The Forerunners are kind of the Vex, and the Flood are obviously the Hive. It was funny seeing the origin of those ideas that I had no idea about even after playing Destiny for basically the last decade. I know, it's kind of insane how it's taken me this long to play Halo. I have no idea how everyone else feels about the Arbiter, but I think he's cool as fuck. He's meant to be the Covenant equivalent to Master Chief, and boy does he deliver. Maybe he's not as dedicated to aura farming as Chief. I don't think anybody is. But he gets a ton from his armor alone, and the whole rebel leading his people to freedom vibe. I really did love the Arbiter missions in this game, except for one specific part. In Mission 5, Oracle, there's a section early on where you have to take an elevator. It was literally the slowest elevator I have ever ridden in my entire life. And it's not like it was swarmed with enemies, so there was stuff to do in the meantime. No, it was empty. Of doing nothing. I don't know if something went wrong in my game or if this is just how it is, but I was stunned. This is hilariously pretty much my main complaint with this game. I'm serious. Other than some weapon balancing maybe, the worst thing about this game is that fucking elevator. I was also slightly annoyed at the cliffhanger ending, but probably not as annoyed as the people who had to wait 3 years to see the end of the story. I also didn't love the ending because I thought the Tartarus boss fight was a bit boring, and really wanted the final level to be as Chief barreling through the dropship towards the Prophet of Truth. The Gravemind was a really cool thing to see too, giving the Flood a bit more fleshed out lore and personality was dope. I kinda wish there was a boss fight there, and there are a few in the game, which is sick, even if they're pretty simple. The Gravemind cutscene was really cool. I liked the way the narrative brought the two heroes together through one of the villains and sent them each to where they needed to be. It was a fun way to branch areas together. I played the Anniversary Edition, as you can probably tell from the gameplay, and the cutscenes held up really well because of that. The Gravemind's flaps were so gross, dude, but it worked well to give a creepier vibe to the giant flesh worm than it already had. Oh, by the way, another Destiny connection. They got Hive Gods in this shit too, man. That's crazy. Halo 2 really is a perfect sequel. Everything's bigger and better, the characters have more depth, and the gunplay feels more well-rounded. It's also a sequel in the most literal sense. Two protagonists telling two separate but intertwining stories, and you can wield two guns at once, which is pretty cool. Halo 3 is pretty good. As a way of simulating the wait that happened in real life, I waited a couple days to play this one. In the meantime, I actually watched the trailers leading up to this game as recommended by my friends who grew up with Halo. I watched the main two, the E3 2006 announcement, wow, I remember E3, and the Believe trailer. I'd heard about and maybe even watched the Believe trailer before, and it is about as good as everyone says. A really unique vision, quiet despite the chaos of war being depicted, but it's also brutal and cruel and hopeless until Chief wakes up, I guess. Really solid trailer. But man, that announcement trailer got me. I still get a little emotional watching it, and I didn't know anything about Halo's story until now. When Chief appears through the dust and that damn piano plays, man, that moment gets me. Something about that piano section is magical, and clearly Bungie knew it too, because it plays almost too frequently in Halo 3's campaign. Also, the tagline, "Finish the fight," is just perfect. It doesn't get much better than that. But enough about Halo 3's marketing. What is the game actually like? It's pretty good too. The opening cutscene narrated by Cortana, now separated from Chief and captured by the Gravemind, gives a fitting somber tone. This is the finale. It's all led up to this. And you can tell just by what memories Chief is having as he crashes down to Earth. And what's the first thing Chief does when he wakes up?
We're not leaving him here.
Yeah, you're not.
Orofarm. It's all he knows, okay? Hey, look, the Arbiter's here too. And he's also Orofarming. This air of finality really drives the entire story. You have one goal: finish off the Covenant Prophets once and for all. Each mission feels like an escalation of the war up until the Ark is activated. You can really tell that this is the first Halo game on the new generation, and not just because of the motion blur. The graphics are better, even if they felt like a downgrade after Halo 2 Anniversary, but I can't knock it for that, so it's still better. The battles are grander, there's more enemies, more allies, more environments, more vehicles. There's so much more in this game that it's really only possible on a new console. Now yes, I played each game on PC using the Master Chief Collection, so I don't quite get the same experience, but the point is Halo 3 absolutely feels more robust and grand in scope than Halo 2 or CE. You can tell that Bungie was going all out on this one. It's particularly noticeable in the double Scarab fight, the multiple Pelican sections, and the Scorpion tank assault on the Cartographer. Even the music has that sense of finality. As I mentioned earlier, that little piano string hits so hard. It's simple, emotional, and incredibly iconic and catchy. After playing Halo 3, I would sometimes just have it play in my head randomly. And the way it feeds into an updated rendition of the main Halo theme is just perfect. I think it's my favorite track in the entire series. That shit gets me fired up. When I'm writing the script for each of these games, I listen to their respective soundtracks, and I think Halo 3's might be my favorite. Reach is up there too, but I'll talk about that one later. Everything about this soundtrack just oozes confidence and ambition. This is the final game in the trilogy, and every aspect of it is letting you know that, especially the music. The game's mission design is great too, except maybe the Gravemind level. That area kind of sucked. Cool vibe being in the nest and all, but not a very fun level overall. I think I still like Halo 2's mission set a bit more, but I didn't have much to complain about with this one either. I like the 343 Guilty Spark boss fight, even if it is pretty simple. It's fun to use the Spartan laser. I was pretty surprised there was no Gravemind boss fight in this game either, but I heard that was cut content. I'm still kind of sad about that. It would have been a cool thing to do to get Cortana back, for example. The final escape mission was fun though. a nice callback to CE's final mission driving off the Pillar of Autumn, except this time it's onto a similar ship. It's not all perfect, though. While I do like a lot of what Halo 3 has to offer and love much of the story, there's one main story thing that kept bothering me. I really felt like the Arbiter was kind of sidelined in this one. Sure, he gets to kill the Prophet of Truth and have that awesome moment, but outside of that, he really doesn't have much to do besides just hang around Chief and look cool. He has little input on the story and even littler impact. This was super disappointing for me as someone who loved the exploration of the Covenant through the Arbiter. Instead, this game focuses almost entirely on Chief and Cortana. They don't consult the Arbiter on any plans. He's kind of just along for the ride with Chief, which is cool that they're fighting together, but I wish they felt like more of an actual duo rather than main character and sidekick. Outside of that, though, I thought the story was a fitting finale for the trilogy. Humanity defeats the Covenant, well, the leadership anyway, the Flood, and stops the Halo rings from being activated for good. It's even a pretty fitting conclusion for each of the main characters, too. The Arbiter gets to go back to his people to lead them to a new era of independence, and Chief, the eternal warrior and aura farmer he is, goes to bed until the next fight. I like the idea of Chief being a break in case of emergency kind of guy, where you only call him for the biggest problems. I like that he would be the nuclear option, so to speak. Fitting, too, for all the insane shit he's destroyed and killed. Chief also can't die because, honestly, I'm not sure he's capable of death, and also because his entire character is war. All he has ever known is combat, and so for him to, say, be at the front of the ship and take the Arbiter's place and return to Earth wouldn't really make sense. I don't think Chief can survive in peace times. He needs combat. That's his purpose. So it makes sense that the end to his story would be him placed in stasis until the next time he's needed, which might be never. And I think I'd be okay with that. I'm not sure I need much more from Chief, even though I do love watching him deliver goofy one-liners. This is the end of his story. Right? Well, Master Chief isn't in this game, at least. Unfortunately, Halo 3 ODST isn't the best example that a Halo game without Master Chief can work. This game felt incredibly standard to me. This is maybe the most C-tier game I've ever played. It certainly wasn't bad, but I also didn't find anything it did particularly interesting. This is the first true miss for me in the Halo franchise. It's maybe the only game here I would recommend skipping if you're looking to do your own first playthrough of Halo. The main idea with this game is pretty interesting, I guess. You're introduced to a very typical ragtag group of soldiers called ODSTs, which stands for Orbital Drop Shock Troopers. They're a group of humans meant to basically be Helldivers. You play as the new recruit to the squad, which is led by a guy named Buck. The game takes place in between the events of Halo 2 and 3, which means your squad has been assigned to defend New Mombasa from an invading Covenant fleet. But when dropping in, your pods are shot down, and your squad gets separated. It's a cool opening sequence that got me a bit excited for what was to come. You wake up 6 hours later. It's now night, and you have to go find your squad. Then, you walk around for a little bit, and the game tells you to go to this kiosk, and then it tells you to open your map. I think my literal reaction to this was, oh, what the fuck? You have a map and quest log and can display waypoints at any time in this game, which I actually do kind of like because it is easy to get lost in New Mombasa. While I appreciate Bungie trying something different, and I also recognize that this game isn't really a standalone game, hence the title Halo 3 ODST, I still didn't really like it. Regardless, your goal is to find your squad. You find the first clue as to their whereabouts, and it cuts to a new mission in the past. This is the main format for the story. Rookie walks around the city at night to find their teammates, finds a piece of one of them, and gets a real mission that tells a little bit about where they are. While this concept is kind of cool, I really just didn't like having to walk to each mission start point. The rookie sections were really boring for me. The other missions were mostly okay, some better than others, but overall nothing too impressive or offensive. But having half the game be walking to the next mission was a really bad experience for me. It's basically what every Destiny campaign does too, though I don't say that as an excuse for Destiny either. There are a couple things that are still good in this game. The music has always really been impressive, and that has stayed true even for me with Destiny. Bungie should really keep that Michael Salvatore guy around. Oops. Anyway, I think every Halo game is defined by its music, and while ODST's music is still good, it's not nearly as iconic as the original trilogy for me. Now, I do admit that's maybe not a totally fair comparison, but it is how I feel. The gunplay is also still good. It's about the same sandbox as Halo 3 from what I could tell, though there was at least one new weapon added. I don't think the silenced SMG really does all that much to spice up the arsenal though, so I ended up being kind of bored by a similar sandbox to Halo 3. Although I think the framing of the story is bad, I think the narrative itself is fine. It felt pretty by the books and bland, but it wasn't like terrible. I will say the main thing that brings the story down for me is the silent rookie protagonist. There's this one moment where you finally meet a member of your team who's still alive, and the main character just doesn't say anything to her. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm plenty familiar with awkward main characters that don't contribute anything to the story, but that doesn't mean I want them. I get that Chief and Arbiter weren't exactly chatty before, but a completely silent protagonist is just bad. One other problem I have with the story is that it's just not a very good war story. There is no tragedy other than that New Mombasa gets glassed, but there's not really any personal tragedy that happens. Even the character that gets slashed in the chest by a fucking grav hammer just lives. He's fine. No one in the main cast dies, and they get out with the package safely. Also, the package itself is like a strange wrinkle in the story. Sure, it's the first time that we've seen this race called engineers, but really what I care more about is that the info they get from the engineer is completely useless in the grand scheme of the war. They discover what the Covenant are looking for on Earth, a way to reach the Ark. The problem is that info doesn't really matter. Okay, so they're looking for a giant portal buried in Africa somewhere. Now what? It's not like they got the Death Star plans or anything. Actually, I'm not even sure if they found out that much on screen. The end cutscene is Sergeant Johnson interrogating the engineer, but we don't exactly know what the engineer tells him. Johnson asks the engineer to help them stop the brutes, but as we know from Halo 3, they don't. It would be like if the Rebellion failed to destroy the Death Star, and Rogue One was about getting them the plans that they don't even use. It's pointless. I really don't have all that much else to say about ODST. It's an almost painfully mid-game. It just didn't inspire much confidence in what's next for Halo. This is just kind of the best one, isn't it? Reach is the game ODST tells you not to worry about. It's everything ODST should be and more. Its narrative is one with real, tangible stakes that you see get more and more severe as the game goes on and the war on Reach is lost. This is actually Halo's Rogue One, even down to the important artifact they need to transmit off the planet that's about to be destroyed. Reach worked so well for me because it is truly a story about war and human perseverance in the face of insurmountable odds. I love the opening sequence of missions where you investigate a disturbance on Reach, assuming it to be rebels, but instead happen upon a Covenant ship. The gradual progression of discovery of just how many Covenant there are invading Reach plays out perfectly. Every mission, the fight gets worse. You think you have a solution to destroy the Covenant's cruiser, and 7 more appear instead. Not to sound too unscientific, but man, this game has every bit of aura that ODST lacked. The character designs are better, the main character actually speaks when needed instead of staring blankly at the first live person they've seen. The group dynamic works better, you have cooler missions with more to do than drive in a straight line, and new gameplay innovations that were refreshing. And even though I'm not a guy who loves nostalgia, in fact I typically find it really annoying and cheap, I thought the references and connections to Halo CE felt like a fond farewell to the series for Bungie, rather than a, hey, remember the good times moment. But enough comparisons to ODST, because Reach absolutely deserves to stand on its own. It shows that Halo 3 really can be the end to Chief and Cortana's story, without it meaning the end of the franchise. I get it. Chief has insane aura, and is obviously the leading icon for the franchise, but I also think that he's fairly one-dimensional and robotic. As I've said before, he doesn't really have a character other than one-liners. While Reach's characters don't have the depth of, say, Kratos in the Norse God of War games, they do have about as much depth as a character like Captain Price or Soap from the original Modern Warfare series. Side note, does anyone else think June looks exactly like Captain Price here? I also love how the story is told in a different manner than the trilogy, the most obvious example being how cutscenes are shot in this game, with a handheld type style to give you the feeling of really being a part of this squad doing their absolute best to fight back against insurmountable odds. Now yes, the story isn't completely groundbreaking or the best narrative I've ever played or anything, but my expectations for a single-player campaign in a multiplayer shooter are essentially, can you give me a good war or espionage story? Halo Reach answers that with an emphatic yes. I also love the new weapons introduced in Reach, particularly the DMR. I used to love scout rifles in Destiny 1, and the DMR scratches that itch perfectly. The needle rifle's cool too, and the guns overall feel like a solid sandbox with good weight and feel. The armor effects are interesting. I found myself really only using the sprint, which was super jarring the first time I pressed the button. But it was clearly communicated that it was limited, which was a welcome change from COD's, I don't guess how much stamina you have left, dummy, type of sprinting. The space battle missions were a standout for me. They reminded me a bit of the old Battlefront 2 Galactic Conquest space battles, which I always liked. It also made me think about how it's kind of crazy that Bungie still hasn't done even a single mission with mechanics like this in Destiny. I loved the whole sequence of George's sacrifice and the tragic thought of him thinking he saved Reach. Seeing New Alexandria up close swarming with brutes was another standout mission for me, starting with only the Magnum and trying desperately to save every civilian you can. And the ending sequence of an Onslaught survival was a really fun way to end the campaign, even if I didn't last very long. Final thing to gush about is the music, man. Halo has pretty much always had good music, but man, Reach is just incredible. The Halo 3 piano motif, playing the first time you clearly see Cortana, is just magical, man.
Chosen by an AI.
By this AI, yes. Her measure of you carries as much weight as my own, perhaps more. You are to take her to the UNSC shipbreaking yard in Azad. There, you'll find a Halcyon-class cruiser waiting to get her off-planet.
I understand.
The musical callbacks to previous Halo games really make this one feel full circle. The use of the main Halo theme is so perfect, I feel like I could run through a Wraith. I don't know how the Halo community feels about Reach, but I think it's my favorite. That is, unless Halo 4 is really good. It'll be good, right? 343 surely didn't fuck up the franchise in their first game, right? Right? Yeah, I don't think this one's very good. I'll start with the positives. The new guns are awesome. I love the feel of picking up a brand new weapon and hearing something I've never heard before. They really nailed the designs of the new Forerunner weapons. I particularly loved the new rocket launcher, the incinerator cannon. That thing felt awesome to fire. And I actually kind of loved the suppressor too. The sound design, visuals, and feel for these new weapons on top of the old classics was really cool and fresh. The game also looks really nice, and I don't mind Chief's redesign. Cortana's is in service of the story, I guess. I mean, look, there's no getting around that Cortana was always kind of a little purposefully designed, shall we say. But here I think it's a bit egregious. And that's it. That's all I have to say about Halo 4. I'm serious. Thanks for watching. Alright, we should probably talk about the rest of the game. Oh boy, there's a lot to unpack here. I'll start simple, in that I think the mission design is a bit lackluster, and I didn't care all that much for the environments past the jungle mission and the mission where you're riding on the giant truck with a rail cannon on it. The Forerunner aesthetic I've never been a huge fan of, so any mission, which ended up being most missions, that took place in that environment, I just kind of wasn't interested in. As far as the actual narrative goes, this is by far the weakest in the series to me personally. The whole plot centers around the question that Cortana asks Chief directly at one point in the story.
Before this is all over, promise me you'll figure out which one of us is the machine.
I think my main gripe with the story is that I just don't think this is a very interesting question. Chief in Halo 4 kind of goes back to the generic player stand-in guy instead of the aura-farming legend that he was in Halo 2 and 3. Logistically, I understand why he might be different, but in-universe, it doesn't really make all that much sense to me when he was literally frozen in time for years. He's gone back to the guy he was in CE. It's a weird development, especially so when taking the who's the machine question into account. Chief should not have changed much since Halo 3, and he so clearly was the machine in the original trilogy. As I said before, this man runs off of hype moments, aura, and one-liners. He is an immortal being that exists only to protect humanity and aura farm. There is no other character to dig into, really. At least with Kratos, who I would generally tend to think is his PlayStation counterpart that I'm much more familiar with. Kratos had depth to his character in the original God of War trilogy. Now sure, maybe it's not a fair comparison given different game genres, but I do feel like there are many similarities to each of these unstoppable icons of gaming. Another reason I think the machine argument is kind of dumb is the literal interpretation doesn't hold up either. Humans have emotions and expressions. Chief has a helmet. Humans have limits. Chief can do anything. Humans die. Chief can't die. You know who does all of those things? Cortana. The only way this question holds any modicum of actual discussion is if you think that something that does not have a flesh and blood body can never be a human. Otherwise, I think the whole discussion begins to fall apart. Hell, for that matter, Chief literally isn't even human for half the game. I'm only just now realizing that I focus so much on that one concept that I've forgotten entirely about the Forerunners. My God, the Forerunners. What did 343 do to you? You see, I didn't mention back in the Halo 3 section that one of my friends who's a lot more into Halo than I am asked me what I thought about the Forerunners when I was playing the Gravemind mission. I told him that I assumed they were old humans, gone extinct after activating the Halo rings due to an outbreak of flood. I mean, it seems obvious, right? 343 Guilty Spark calls multiple different humans specifically Reclaimers, implying that humanity used to control the Halo rings. The Forerunner architecture, though vaguely alien, is still very modern and human-like, and the rings need to be activated by a human specifically on the Ark in Halo 3. Hell, even calling the Ark is a reference to the Bible, which is a human text. And what I also told my friend was that I could tell that the mystery of the Forerunners would be too great. People want answers, whether they need them or not. And I had a feeling in the back of my mind that even though I wanted to know the truth about the Forerunners, that the series would begin to go downhill once they started answering those questions. And sure enough, here we are. Halo 4 posits that, in fact, the Forerunners are not human. Instead, they are a new race that was at war with humanity long ago. The humans were trying to find a new space to live away from the all-consuming flood, and the Forerunners, in all their wisdom and power, were not aware of the flood. So, after they sent humanity back to the Stone Age, they were all but wiped out by the flood. They used digitized soldiers to combat the flood with inorganic material, led by a Forerunner named the Didact. But the Didact was locked away for a time, until Master Chief unseals him. That all would be somewhat confusing alone, given that it's odd Guilty Spark would call humanity Reclaimers if the Forerunner installations were not meant for humanity. But that's not all. You see, Master Chief is not simply the greatest soldier ever by chance, or by luck, as Cortana says at the beginning of Halo 3, and not really even because of specific training in the Spartan 2 program. No, the reason Chief is as powerful and lucky as he is because he is the result of a plan made thousands of years ago by another Forerunner, the Librarian, to stop the Didact. Yes, it's fucking midichlorians. Oh boy, I can't tell you how disappointed I was in this, man. He gets some genetic thing unlocked by the Librarian that lets him resist being digitized or something. Man, I don't know. I can't lie, I just think it's lame. What a boring reveal. I hate the whole, we actually planned this for thousands of years for you to be here for this moment. Like, really? You planted the Arbiter then too? Made sure he was on the original Halo ring, but escaped so he can lead a revolt of elites so that the Covenant's prophets would be killed, but not before they got to the Ark to begin activating the rings, and also that Chief would be so tired that he wouldn't get to the front of the ship attempting to escape the Ark through a portal so that he drifts off into space until he planned, comes into contact with the locked-up Didact and the events of Halo 4 can play out exactly right. You did all of that? Made sure Reach got destroyed, but not before Cortana got extracted and put on the Pillar of Autumn. Made sure all of Noble Team died along the way. You did all of that. Come on, man. And for all of this retconning to be in the first 343 game, it just leaves a bad taste in my mouth. It's just a terrible first impression. For what it's worth to myself, I knew this was going to happen. The mystery was too great and the payoff was never going to work. But for it to be like this is just insane, man. The Cortana rampancy storyline is interesting, I'll give them that. But it's so hard to appreciate anything this game does well narratively when the rest is so inexcusable, in my opinion. The only reason this is not my least favorite in the series is because of the Forerunner weapons. That's it. Because there is just about nothing narratively that is satisfying to me. It's not even a good war story. I get that it's hard to pick up a story that ended, and it's gotta be hard to restart a franchise, and I understand that part of that is making your own things to make it feel like your own, not just a copy of Bungie's original work. But man, doing it in this way is just dumb. Like, we just saw that a story without Chief can work. Why not do that? I think the Forerunner weapons are awesome and would even be a cool narrative tie-in parallel if they were actually old humanity weapons. They match up a lot with the human weapons we see, but they aren't. There's something different entirely because 343 wants their own story. It almost feels like they saw exactly what the Forerunners were implied to be and said, actually, it's completely different. This is the reality. Just to subvert expectations rather than having something to say with making that change. Because what do the Forerunners being alien even teach us in the narrative? Simply establishing that there's something larger than humanity out there? The Flood already exists! If the Forerunners were instead old humanity, it would symbolize the need to learn from history and not repeat the mistakes of our forefathers. It would actually mean something to have the Forerunners in the game rather than simply to retcon Chiefs and humanity's origins. Wow, I did not expect to have that much to say about this game. Guess that just shows how much I've learned to care about the franchise. So now's the part where I have to come clean. I didn't play every Halo game. I only played the Master Chief Collection. I have not played Halo 5 or Halo Infinite. And quite frankly, after Halo 4, I don't really want to. My friends have said the same, that the 343 titles aren't really worth my time. Maybe, if this video is popular enough, I'll finish the series fully at some point. But for now, this is it. And honestly, I'm kind of sad that's the case. I really liked the original trilogy. Sure, maybe they felt their age a bit, but I understand why they got so popular. It gave a sense of scale and scope and wonder that you didn't really get, especially in shooters. Master Chief is hilarious and awesome at the same time. If I played Halo CE in 2001 as an unborn infant, I too would be enamored. Unfortunately, that charm only lasted so long for me. I can confidently say that I like Halo, and I can confidently say that I am not interested in any new games either. And that kind of sucks, because I will always love an interesting campaign with good gameplay, but I don't think that's what Halo offers anymore. To be honest, I'm not sure what Halo offers anymore, but whatever they do next, I likely won't be interested. Thanks for watching.
What just happened? What just happened?